Well, hi, and welcome back to another story that my grandmother left with me. And it's all about Granny's wisdom and how we should handle situations that come up in our lives, our daily lives, impromptu moments that we don't know what to do with. That later on we think, oh, I could have said this, I should have done that. Well, my granny was wonderful for telling me how to do things before they happened. So here we go. When I was a young wife and mother, the tender age of 18, my granny was very willing and ready to share moments of her life with me to help me with my young married mothering life. So today's story is going to be about jealousy. Right? I think at some point in our lives we've all felt a tinge of jealousy. So here's a story in my grandmother's life, how she handled what could have been a volatile moment of jealousy. She told me that when she was a young wife and mother, every Saturday night, her and my grandfather, he was Archie, she was Dot and Archie, so cute. He was about 5'6" in height, and my granny was barely 5 feet tall. Anyways, every Saturday night, they had a group of friends that they would socialize with down at the local pub. Sometimes it was the Europe Hotel, sometimes it was the Ross Hotel. But in any event, that's where their night began, drinking beer, socializing, and inevitably, after they were finished at the pub, they would go to one of the homes of the people in the group and continue to sing and drink beer and party. Now, my granny told me that when you have a group of friends or you're in some sort of community, very likely there's going to be one woman who seems to require the attention of husbands other than her own. And she said that in her group, that lady's name was Winnie. Now, Winnie had never bothered my grandfather before, and that was probably a good thing. But this one particular night, Granny said that she could tell that Winnie had her sights on getting my grandfather's attention. So Granny thought, well, how am I going to handle this and save face at the same time? So she thought she would go to the ladies' room just long enough to let Winnie have enough rope to hang herself. That's how my grandmother put it. Give Winnie enough rope to hang herself. So off to the ladies' room my granny went. And like she said, she stayed there just long enough for Winnie to gather enough rope to potentially hang herself. After that time passed, my granny came out of the ladies' room and was walking back to her table, where she saw Winnie sitting side saddle on my grandpa, who's 5'6", on his knees. Now, she said, Grandpa looked a little uncomfortable sitting in his chair with Winnie on his lap, because he sat there with his arms straight down at his sides and he didn't know where to look. At that point, Granny knew what she must do to save the day. So, in her wisdom, in her granny wisdom, she walked over to the table. And because Grandpa was short, Granny was short, Winnie was pretty much eye to eye with my granny. Granny looked straight at Winnie, eye to eye, woman to woman, and said, Winnie, don't you start something that you cannot finish. And I don't feel like finishing it for you tonight. Well, Winnie very gracefully got off of my grandpa's knees, made him a free man again, and went back to her own husband. And my granny sat down, and they finished their evening together as a group of friends. It all worked out quite well. And I said to her, I said, Granny, how did you not get mad? How did you not become so jealous and get mad that a woman was sitting on your husband's knee trying to get his attention? And Granny said, well, honey, you must remember, Grandpa did not invite Winnie to sit on his knee. Your grandfather was a perfect gentleman. Therefore, he could not tell Winnie to get off of his knee. So he sat there very uncomfortably until I returned. And he knew that I would take care of it without making a big fuss at the table, without being mad at Grandpa, and without being mad at Winnie. And do you know, honey, Winnie never, ever bothered your grandfather again. So there you go. What could have been a very jealous moment turned out to be a learning moment for everybody at that table, and most importantly, Winnie. Thank you for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of Granny's wisdom.